Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for your coming today. But I'm really very sorry for today because I'm unable to come to you to discuss about the very interesting topic today, that is classroom action research. But I tried to make special for you this tutorial, and I hope this will be helpful for you. Well, dear my classrooms, classroom action research actually is very familiar for the English teachers, especially in the classrooms. Why classroom action research is very special and familiar for them? Because as the professionals, English teachers are hope to improve their capacity for English teaching in the classroom. Alright, classroom action research is actually well recognized in bahasa, that is called by penelitian tindakan kelas. And here is we go to the first discussion. Classroom action research. What is it? Okay. You can see here from your slide, everyone. Classroom action research is used for improving instructional practices. It also used for repairing classroom condition, enhancing student language skill, and for developing learning atmosphere, and so on. Let's try to discuss first one by one. We start from the first. Classroom action research is very important for improving instructional practices. We can underline here instructional, meaning that this is teaching practices. So instruction means teaching. In the perspective of teaching, so the main actor here is the teacher. How the teacher performs their teaching, how the teacher performs their, take for example, giving instruction, how they teach grammar, for example, how they teach listening, for example, how they teach writing, for example. So in this case, teachers is the main elements or the main data, how she as the subject in the classrooms try to improve his or her expertise. For example, in this one, improving instructional practices, for example, in terms of using for example, new method, task-based, for example, because not all teachers are welcome of task-based learning. Or maybe some of them are still do not know exactly what is meant by task-based learning. Or in terms of the use of ICT, using technology for teaching, for example. This is a demand in our new curriculum that using technology is a must. But you know, and you see of course, that not all teachers know very well how to employ, how to implement, take for example, internet-based teaching, or let's say Edmodo, for example. So when the teacher wants to improve his or her capabilities in employing the technique, for example, so this could be one of the area of action research. Alright, now we go on to the second, utilities of the action research. So action research is also interesting for repairing, for repairing the classroom condition. Take for examples, the students look very uninterested, less motivated, and so on, so that in English learning they are becoming very passive, for example, or getting so tired in the afternoon, for example. So from this condition, the English teacher thinks how to overcome this problem. Of course, the English teachers have to read more articles about it. Why students are so passive? Why the students look so sleepy during the afternoon classes? How the students are less motivated in learning English, for example, in the afternoon at noon classroom. So when the teachers are able to search and finally find out the way or how to solve the problem, then she or he thinks about how to do research for overcoming about the problem. In this case, the research conducted by the teachers in order to repair the classroom condition for better condition, this is well recognized as a classroom action research. Alright, let's go to the third one, enhancing student language skill. As we know, there are four mainly language skills, namely speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And take for example, this is currently hot debated that writing is now become very common practices in our school context. You can see from the syllabus, you can see from the late curriculum, for example in 2013 curriculum, that writing is youth practices. There are a lot of activities and tasks doing by the student in the classroom. The activities on the practices are more frequently asked rather than speaking, listening, or reading. And when you think that student performance in writing, for example, or you can say, let's say in speaking, for example, then you think again how to overcome, how to solve the problem, how students are able to improve their speaking, what some problem cause for this condition. Then starting from this point of view, you go to your library, you read more resources, journal for example, online journal for example, or report of the research. You go to the seminar, you listen, you participate in the active participation discussion in the seminar, and you finally get something very fruitful for overcoming how to improve or to enhance student language skill. When your research is in order to enhance the student practices, listening skill, speaking skill, or other skill in your own classroom, meaning you do classroom action research. And this is also the same as the fourth. You want to develop learning atmosphere because you find that there's a problem in atmosphere. Talking about atmosphere, we can think here about the classroom atmosphere or school atmosphere and so on. This is mainly discussing about the atmosphere, talking about the facilities, talking about the environmental conditions which the environment does not support for language acquisition at all. Now we are going to talk about the characteristics. The characteristic of classroom action research. Take for example, classroom action research is very contextual, meaning this only occurs in very specific classroom, very specific context. Which the context is very small and localized. Take for example, you find it difficult to motivate students in the classroom in 3A, for example, in learning speaking. So your research is only conducted in this classroom. You only focus on the classroom. You only investigate, you only find out more investigation about this classroom only. Second, evaluative and reflective. When you get the data from the classroom, then you try to evaluate. This is the first basis, the first foundation, on the first principle. This is very important one in doing classroom action research. When you have already collected the data from the interview, from the test, from the writing performance, from the speaking performance, and so on, then you try to evaluate what happenings. Is there any something wrong? Then you try to make reflection. Reflection means, because this is a reflection, reflect. You try to take a mirror and you see yourself. What's wrong with you? Maybe something wrong is coming from your performance, is coming from your approach, is coming from your habitual action in everyday practices when you are teaching English. This is a reflective and self-generated. You as the actor, you as the teacher is the main actor in the classroom. So you yourself, you try to generate what cause, why, and so on. But classroom action research here is also possibly for conducted in participatory or collaborative research. You and your friend, for example, a group of English teachers in a certain school, you all together conduct a research focusing on your subject, English teaching, for example, in a third year student. All of you focus, try to improve the third year student skill of their English. You work collaboratively, you try to evaluate together, you try to make reflection together. This is what we call as collaborative. And of course, the final characteristic is this is the base of changes, meaning that the classroom action research is finally addressed or finally aimed or purposed to improve the quality of the practices of you as the teachers. All right. Now we go on to the next page. So when we have already discussed about the how the classroom action research characteristic and so on, now we can conclude that action research is a process in which the participant examine their own educational practices using the technique of research. So we can detect here that this is actually the process. The process of the research are employed or used by the English teachers as the participants to examine, to see, to evaluate, to reflect their own practices in teaching. Of, of course, this is for improving their expertise and improving student capabilities of English. Now we go to the type of classroom action research. So again, classroom action research is very limited. It is very contextual settings. So the scope is very limited. Take for example, the first. The context on the type of action research is individual, meaning that you as the English teacher conducts your own classroom action research. Or the second one, as what mentioned earlier, that you can also establish for collaborative action research. Using collaborative action research, you work together with your colleague in your school. And the loss is this is very wider research, classroom action research, school-wide research, meaning that the English teachers in one school work together to improve the performance of their expertise in their teaching skill and also improving the students' language skills. So there are three areas, but I force you here because you are going to write a scripture thesis. You can work here in the first or in the second type of action research. This is the main topic of today's dialogue or today's discussions: how to conduct the process. In classroom action research, the process is well recognized as cycles. You can hear, yeah. There are many books talking or writing about the classroom action research, and mainly the result of the reading is remaining the same, that the process are in cycles. Let's see here. Sir, when we start our cycles or when we start our process of investigation doing our classroom action research. So as what I mentioned earlier, that classroom action research is employed in order to improve the quality of learning, the quality of teaching. So we have first of all try to identify the problem in the classroom. So yes, of course, the problem in the classroom or the problem relating to the student behavior, yeah, from the particular students. When you have already identified the problems, then you try to again evaluate and make a reflection what and why the condition of the problem. You can go further to your local library and try to read more resources, what happening, why and how to overcome that problems. So afterward you can develop a plan of action. The action here, you can penetrate, you can go to the classroom, you can employ your strategy, you can take an action. Yeah, to take an actions, how to start your solution. Take for example, in this case, the action, for example, you want to implement task-based learning, for example, to overcome student to enhance or to improve student speaking skill, for example. So task-based learning here we call as a solution, or we call as an action, or we call it as new strategy for overcoming the problem. Sir, is it possible to employ another strategy? Yes, of course. You can employ another strategy. For example, you want to use local library for improving your students' horizons or point of views how research conducted. This is possible. You go to the classroom and you execute, or you go to the classroom and you implement your action. After that, you can collect the data from the students. The data here is similar to another research in experiments and in take for example in correlational research. So the data here is based on the problem. When the problem is speaking skill, then you can go on the data in terms of speaking skill. Take for example from speaking performance, from the speaking test, and so on. If the problem is talking or dealing with the motivation, then the data of course will go much on interview and observation. After you get the data, then you can go home of course and try to make a reflection again, try to evaluate. You can analyze the data. You can analyze the data collected from the classroom, from the interview, from the test, for example, from the observation, for example. You proceed the data. You calculate the data. You try to interpret the data, and finally you go to the conclusion. Whether or not by giving this action, student problem here is overcome. When the problem here has already overcome or has already solved, meaning that your research, your classroom action research is finished. It's finished. Your thesis is finished. Now you can write your report in terms of scriptsy. But what about if from the analysis here the problem of the student is still occurring or still remaining? Well, when the student's problem, take for example, their speaking is still unable to improve, or take for example in another case their motivation is still low, then of course you have to read more, discuss more why from this data. Then you have to make some adjustment. You have to make some modification about your treatment here, about your action here. You try to discuss, you try to make some revision of your instrument, and after that you go again to this one. You try to write again the modification of your treatment, of your action, and then go to the classroom again and doing action again and collecting data again and analyze the data. That's all. So when I want to make conclusion today, the process of classroom action research is in form of cycle. When the problem is overcome in one cycle, meaning your action research finished in one cycle. But when the problem is still remaining unresolved, then you make adjustment of your action, then you go to the classroom again and you collecting the data again, meaning your research is more than one cycle, and it could be in two cycles when it is only in two cycle and finished, but it can be more than three cycles when the problem, the action is completed in three cycles. All right. Now we go to this is what I want to say, that classroom action research in daily practices of the teachers, the main purpose of the classroom action research is for improving teacher professionalism development. The more teachers conduct a research, the more capable, the more professional they are. Thank you. If you have some questions, then we can go to further. Oh.